Hello friends, today I am going to tell you a story, a simple story on love. As you already know by the title that this is about the love of a brother for her sister. Guys, this relation is the purest and most selfless relation in the world. I would like you all to listen till the end. So, without wasting much time, now we will start the story. So, let's get started. This story is about a girl who was born in a secluded village on a mountain. Day after day, her parents plowed the yellow dry soil with their backs towards the sky. One day, she wanted to buy a handkerchief which all girls around her seemed to have. So, one day, she stole 50 cents from her father's drawer. Father discovered about the stolen money right away. Who stole the money? Father asked to her brother and her too. She was stunned, too afraid to talk. Neither of them admitted to the fault. So he said, "Fine, if nobody wants to admit, you both should be punished." Suddenly her younger brother gripped his father's hand and said, "Dad, I was the one who did it." He took the blame and punishment for her. In the middle of the night, all of a sudden, she cried out loudly. Her brother covered her mouth with his little hand and said, "Sis, now don't cry anymore. Everything has happened." She would never forget her brother's expression when he protected her. That year, her brother was 8 years old and she herself was 11 years old. She hated herself for not having enough courage to admit what she did. Years went by, but it still seemed to her like it just happened yesterday. When her brother was in his last year of secondary school, he was accepted in an upper secondary school in the central part of the town. At the same time, she was accepted into a university in the province. That night, father squatted in the yard, smoking packet on packets. She could hear him asking her mother, "Both of our children, they are very good. They have very good results." Mother wiped off her tears and sighed. "What is the use? How can we possibly finance both of them?" At that time, her brother walked out. He stood in front of father and said, "Dad, I don't want to continue my studies anymore. I have read enough books." Father became angry. He said, "Why do you have a spirit so weak? Even if it means I have to beg for money on the streets, I will send you two to the school until you both have finished your studies." And after that night, he started to knock on every house in the village to borrow money. She stuck out her hands and gently, as gently as she could, to her brother's face and told him, "A boy has to continue his studies, bhai. If not, he will not be able to overcome his poverty that we are experiencing." She, on the other hand, had decided not to further her studies at the university. But nobody knew that on the next day, before dawn, her brother will leave the house with a few pieces of worn out clothes and a few dry beans. He, he had sneaked to her side of the bed and left a note on her pillow. Sis, getting into your university is not easy. I will go and find a job and I will send money to you. She held the note while sitting on the bed and cried until she lost her voice. With the money father borrowed from the village and the money her brother earned from carrying cement on his back at the construction site, finally she managed to get to the third year of her study in the university. That year, her brother was 17 and she was 20 years old. One day, while she was studying in her room, her roommate came in and told her, "There's a villager waiting for you outside." Why would there be a villager looking for her outside? She thought. She walked out and she saw her. He was his brother from afar. His whole body was covered with dirt, dust, cement and sand. She asked him, "Why did you not tell my roommate that you are my brother?" He replied with a smile, "Look at my appearance. What will they think if they would know that I am your brother? Won't they laugh at you?" She felt so touched and tears filled her eyes. She swept away the dirt and the dust from her brother's body and told him with a lump in her throat, "I don't care what people would say. You are my brother, and no matter what your appearance is." Now, from his pocket, he took out a butterfly hairclip. He put it on her hair and said, "I saw all the girls in the town are wearing it. I think you should also have one." She could not hold herself back anymore. She pulled her brother into her arms and cried. That year, her brother was 20 years old and she was 23. After she got married, she lived in the city. Many times her husband invited her parents to come and live with them. But they didn't agree. They said once they would leave the village, they would not know what to do. Her brother agreed with them. He said, "Sis, you just take care of your parents-in-law. I will take care of mom and dad here." Her husband became the directors of his factory. They asked her brother to accept the offer of being the manager in the maintenance department. But her brother was working as a repairman instead for a start. One day, her brother was on the top of a ladder repairing a cable when he got electrocuted and was sent to the hospital. Her husband and she herself visited him at the hospital. Looking at the plaster cast on his leg, she grumbled, "Why did you reject the offer of being a manager? Managers won't do something like that. Now look at you. You are suffering a serious injury. Why didn't you just listen to us?" With a serious expression on his face, he defended his decision. "Think of your brother-in-law. He just became the director. If I, being uneducated, would become a manager, what kind of rumors would fly round?" Her husband's eyes filled with tears and then she said, "But you lack in education only because of me." "Why do you talk about the past?" he said, and then he held her hand. That year he was 26 and she was 29. Her brother was 30 years old when he married a farmer girl from the village. During the wedding reception, the master of ceremonies asked him, "Who is the one person you respect and love most?" Without even taking a time to think, he answered, "My sister." He continued by telling a story she had not even remembered. When I was in a primary school, the school was in a different village. Every day, my sister and I would walk for 2 hours to school and back home. One day, I lost my clothes. My sister gave me one of hers. She wore only one glove, and she had to walk far. When we got home, her hands were trembling because of cold weather. She could not even hold her chopsticks. From that day on, I swore that as long as I lived, I would take care of my sister and would always be good to her. Applause filled the room. All guests turned their attention to her. She found it hard to speak. In my whole life, the one I would like to thank the most is my brother. And in front of the crowd, tears started rolling down her face. Now, at last, I would say that you do love and care for the one you love every single day of your life. You may think what you did is just a small deed, but to that someone, it may mean a lot. Thank you very much for listening to this story. Okay, now, at last, I request you all to share this podcast.
If you like this video, I will be honored. And please subscribe my channel if you want more stories with greater clarity of scenes. Thank you so much.